Good morning, welcome to the team. Let's get going. As you're getting your donut and your coffee, I want to just hope that you guys each had a great Thanksgiving day or a couple days, whatever you had off from work. We had our boys home for about 2.5 days, which was really fun. Lots of food, lots of laughter, lots of fun. Hope you had the same thing. I do happen to know at least one person here, but anybody here get to go to some sort of major college football game over the break? Anybody go to the Ohio State game? Oh, there's one over here. Yeah, one over here went to the Ohio State game. But we hope you had a great Thanksgiving, and we're moving toward holiday season again. So the schedule, I think I put it in the email, but schedule going forward is we meet obviously today, the next Friday, December 9th, and then December 16th we will meet, and then we'll be off for both the 23rd and the 30th, just due to Christmas and New Year's, start up again in January, and I'll remind you of that again in emails. But today we want to give out some awards. I think I put in the email as well. You know, back before, with a month or so before Thanksgiving, we had kind of an interesting project that Bob Miller gave us an opportunity to participate in, Shoes for Haiti. Collecting a whole bunch of shoes, and I want to report on that, and we'll give some awards out today. So Bob, come up here to the front. You saw the total I think I sent out to you was, as a group, we had almost every table involved. There were some bags that didn't have table numbers associated with or put into them or whatever. We think almost every table was involved, at least at some level. But as a group, we donated 1,884 pairs of shoes to Shoes for Haiti. So congratulations, guys. Awesome job. And now I want to give you what you're all waiting for, which is the results table by table. Actually, the top 3 tables will have awards today. So in third place with the bronze medal, hold up the bronze medals everybody's going to get from third table. Okay, we'll have the table leader come up in just a second. So table 30 came in third place with 168 pairs of shoes. Table leader from table 30, come on up here. So you can take these wonderful bronze medals back to your table group. Congratulations, table 30, for your efforts. In second place, receiving a very valuable silver medal. These are actually replicas of the Olympic medals. Not really. Second place, table 4, 199 pairs of shoes. Coming up, table 4. Leader, come on up. And really, all this shows is either these guys have wives are buying way too many pairs of shoes, or they have tons of kids that haven't given them away yet. So, and what you're really all waiting for is in first place, with an almost incredible 380 pairs of shoes, almost double the second place number, table 22. Come on up here, table 22. And hang on. And you guys, you don't just get gold medals, you get gold medals. We promised a car, right? So they each get cars. Bob is providing one little die set car for each guy at that table, so take the cars back. You can fight over the models you want. So congratulations to table 22 for your efforts. Thank you. Hey, Bob, here. All right, that was fun. And we did that just because I like to support, you know, men who are involved with stuff like that, or are passionate about something that's a ministry or cares for somebody, whether they're traveling, doing a work project, or this kind of thing. We do like to support that. We think it's important for men to be involved in communities and in the world, so whatever way we can support that, we try to do that. And it was just a fun project, so thanks for participating. And we'll help provide some education for some children in Haiti who desperately need that kind of ministry. All right, our story today. Man and his wife got in a fight about something neither would give in about, so they were giving each other the silent treatment. Have you ever had one of those fights? I'm really good at that, by the way. The next week, the man realized he was going to need his wife to wake him up at 5 a.m. for an early flight for work. Not wanting to be the first to break the silence, he finally wrote on a piece of paper and left it for her to find, "Please wake me at 5 a.m. The next morning, the man woke up only to discover it was 7 a.m. and he had missed his flight. He couldn't believe she would take it that far, and so he was just going to confront her when he noticed a piece of paper on the bed by his side that said, "It's 5 a.m., wake up." Moral of that story is, buy an alarm clock. You can still win that battle if you just buy an alarm clock. Okay. We are doing today session number 11 in your booklet. It's called David the Lazy Warrior. And if you read ahead at all, you know the story that I'm going to talk about today. For us as men, it's one of the more uncomfortable stories in the Old Testament because we can see ourselves in it. And I struggle to find the movie clip, and I've taught on this before in team, and I don't want to put in front of you images that are going to take your mind places that you'd really rather not go when we're getting ready to talk about the Bible. But I finally did find a clip I can use. This is a clip from a movie made in 1951 called David and Bathsheba. And it's as cheesy as you think it would possibly be, made in 1951. It's cheesy, first of all, because the guy playing King David is Gregory Peck, okay? Not exactly a Semitic-looking character to play this role of David. And the music is cheesy and all that, but the scene kind of works for reasons I'll let you know about after we watch the scene. Now, before you watch it, I want to situate it where the scene is in the movie and where it is in the story we're going to read. King David, by this time, is rich and famous. He's got many wives, and we'll talk about that later, as kings did in those days. And he's just had an uncomfortable conversation with his first wife, whose name was Michal, who was the daughter of King Saul, and he's frustrated. So he goes outside to cool off, and he happens to notice a woman bathing on the roof of her home, just a next door neighbor, and the woman is bathing, and we pick up the scene in the movie right after he has noticed her, okay? That's the scene, so watch this cheesy clip, and we'll pick it up after the clip.
There's a house over there, under that big terebinth tree. You know it?
Yes, sir. The house of Uriah the Hittite.
Uriah the Hittite?
He's a captain with the army.
Yes, I know him. Does he by any chance have a sister?
No, sir. He has a wife, a Hebrew woman of Benjamin called Bathsheba.
Bathsheba. During my visit to the army, this Uriah's gallantry was called to my attention. It's been in my mind to reward him. Perhaps in his absence, his wife could accept the reward.
I'll send for the woman in the morning, sir.
No, send for her now. She shall dine with me tonight.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What I like about that scene, cheesy as it is the full 23 seconds that the camera stays on King David as he watches the woman who's not even in the picture. And I like that, first of all, because it's discreet. I mean, it was 1951. Today, they'd make that scene, and the camera would be only focused on the woman, and it'd be a rated R scene, right? That's how we do it today. But in those days, they couldn't do that. So they show King David the entire time watching something that you can't see. And it works, secondly, because the story really isn't about the woman. The story is what's happening in David's head. And you can see it as he watches. And Gregory Peck, that slight movement of his eyebrows, and you can see the wheels turning. We know what's going on in his head, don't we, guys? Those 23 seconds are critical in David's life as the legacy of his entire career, his entire reign as king, and his legacy as a husband and father hang in the balance for 23 seconds. Those 23 seconds are a turning point in King David's life. Now, a little review. David, remember, became a hero as a young man when he killed Goliath. King Saul, who was the first king of Israel, became insanely jealous of young David's popularity and tries multiple times to kill David to get him out of the picture. So therefore, God removed his blessing from Saul, placed it on David. David becomes the greatest king of Israel. He was an unbelievably gifted guy. If you know anything about the Old Testament, David was a warrior. He was a musician. He was a poet. He wrote most of the Psalms that are in the book of Psalms in your Bible. He was a gifted leader, politician, successful in everything he did and everything he touched, with the exception of marriage and his children, which we'll look at a little bit in a moment. Wealthy beyond imagination and powerful, but all that success seems to have done something to King David. And this is the story we're going to read today, part of it. 2 Samuel 11, look in your notes. Let me read this brief portion of it, and then I'll summarize the rest. 2 Samuel 11. In the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, "She is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam and the wife of Uriah the Hittite." Then David sent messengers to get her. She came to him, and he slept with her. Now she was purifying herself from her monthly uncleanness. Then she went back home. The woman conceived and sent word to David saying, "I am pregnant." That's a very truncated sort of Cliff Notes version of a much deeper story. But now we got a problem. David's got a huge problem here, right? The rest of the story, which some of you may know, is that David has got to wind himself out of this problem. Okay? So he calls Uriah the Hittite, her husband, back from the battlefield. He's out fighting David's battles, calls him back, and gives him a little R&R at home, hoping that Uriah the Hittite will sleep with his beautiful wife and think then the child is his. That's David's plan. Uriah the Hittite won't go home and sleep. He sleeps on the porch of his house. He won't go in because he says, "Why should I have this pleasure when my comrades are out fighting in the field?" He's so faithful to his comrades, he won't even go into his wife. Now David gets angry. So now he brings Uriah in and he gets him drunk on wine, then sends him home hoping then he'll sleep with his wife. He still doesn't. Now David has really got a problem. So he makes orders from the king, wraps him up, sends him with Uriah to the general, Joab. The orders are put Uriah on the front line, where he's killed in battle. David takes his wife to be his wife. This is a problem. See, the Bible doesn't hide the flaws of its greatest heroes. It doesn't hide David's flaws. So why does God see fit to tell us this unseemly, nasty story? Well, I think because as men, we all know why he tells us this story. Because there, but for the grace of God, we all go. Okay, the story begins with the sin of laziness. That's how I'm starting today, the sin of laziness. I listen to, probably more often than I should, a radio show when I'm driving around. It's a sports talk show. On the Score on the radio, and sometimes they do these things on Fridays, just these fun segments. And a few years ago, I was listening in, and they did a little segment called "Tales of Laziness." They had men call in with stupid, lazy stuff, examples of their own laziness. Like there'd be a guy who was watching football on TV, and he couldn't reach the remote. Didn't want to get up out of his lazy boy chair to get the remote, so he took his shoe off and threw it at the TV, trying to change the channel, and broke his flat screen TV. That's a tale of laziness. Then I got an idea, and I actually emailed it into them. I was sitting at my computer. I emailed my own story of laziness into them, and it was back when I was in grad school and still single. I lived on almost nothing, and so one of the meals I'd make for myself would I'd either make spaghetti, and I'd have to brown the ground beef in a kind of a cook pot, and the grease would be left in the pan, or I'd make myself hamburgers in a pot, and I was too lazy to clean the grease out of the pan. It was hard to clean that grease out of the pan, but I noticed after a while it would just pile, the grease would sort of stack up at the bottom and solidify, in that white sort of thing, but it would melt again if I turned on the burner. So then one night I wanted to make popcorn, and I was too lazy to clean out the pot, so I thought, that's grease, that'll probably work. And so I put the popcorn in with the hamburger grease, and it popped right up. And it tasted vaguely like hamburger. So I had hamburger-flavored popcorn, and I'd give it to my friends. They think, "Oh, this is awesome popcorn. How'd you make this popcorn?" So that's my tale of laziness. So I emailed it in, and it got put out. The guy read it on the air. So I'm texting Jeff Frazier, I'm on the air. My hamburger popcorn's on the air. This is a story that begins with laziness. In the spring, At the time kings go off to war, David sent Joab. Now, we can read right by that. It makes sense. Kings send out their generals. That's what presidents do today, send out their generals to fight the battles. But if you lived in that time, in that culture, you would immediately go, uh-oh, that's a problem. And it has to do with the role of the king in the ancient world. The king was leader and he was warrior. Okay? The winter was the rainy season. Typically, it was so muddy at that time in that part of the world that armies couldn't march through the mud during the winter times, so everyone stayed home. There were no battles. But with spring, the ground was good, vegetation grew, could support troops and animals, so that's when kings prepared to defend their territories, because that's when armies would come in and try to take territories, because the world was a violent place in those days. So the story begins by telling us that David did not do what kings were expected to do. Instead of leading his army into battle, he stayed home. Problem. Secondly, we see the story tells us the second thing. One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. Anything jump out to you here that's strange? One evening, David got up from bed. See, when I get up in the evening or late afternoon, that means I've just fallen asleep during a Bears game and taken a nap, right? Every Sunday afternoon. Right about the second quarter, I fall asleep and I wake up sometime in the fourth quarter to see the inevitable result. So I get up then and lived out but so what's David doing here? Shouldn't he just be getting ready to go to bed in the evening? Why is he getting up from bed in the evening? Is he sleeping during the day? Is he taking a nap? Is he restless, can't sleep? Well, maybe all of the above. Here's what I think. King David has had so much success, he's gained so much wealth, wielded so much power that he's become bored and entitled. In short, David's become lazy. Did you know that laziness is a sin in the Bible? In fact, laziness or sloth has historically been considered one of the 7 deadly sins by the church. And the 7 deadly sins are pride, envy, wrath, gluttony, lust, sloth, and greed. And we see at least 3 of these at work in this story here today. Now, it's a very subtle sin. Laziness isn't necessarily doing something bad or immoral. It's failing to do what is good and right. Sloth is avoidance of responsibility, a lack of vigilance in one's life. It's being unwilling to do what God wants done because it takes effort to do it. Okay? And as we're going to see, laziness is a doorway to other sinful behavior. It leads to temptation and immorality. In Proverbs 9, we read, "How long will you lie there, you sluggard?" That's a great Old Testament word. Sluggard. It means lazy person. "How long will you lie there, you sluggard? When will you get up from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come upon you like a thief, and scarcity like an armed man." David grows complacent and lazy. He stays home. He sends Joab out to fight his battles, and poverty comes upon him like an armed man. Not material poverty, but spiritual poverty. His decision to stay home comes from, secondly, the danger of entitlement. The danger of entitlement. The sports world, and you may remember this, and the entertainment world, in fact, really our whole culture was shocked in November of 1991 when Magic Johnson, one of the biggest sports stars in the world at that time, announced he had contracted the HIV virus and was retiring it from the NBA at age 32. He eventually admitted that he had believed he had contracted the virus from heterosexual, unprotected relationships with over 3,000 women during his career with the Lakers. When the people ask why, he said he felt entitled. He just assumed that his status and stardom gave him permission to take advantage of all the women who just made themselves available to him. And it cost him. Cost him his career, and very nearly cost him his life. So why does David stay home? Because he can. He's the king. He can do whatever he wants. Why does David send Joab out to fight his battles for him? Because he can. He's king. He gets to make the rules. Somewhere in him, I think he's thinking, I've done enough. I killed the giant. I've led all these battles. I deserve a little time for me. A little me time. I'm entitled to enjoy the perks of my position, and some of those perks involved women. The Bible says David took many wives for himself. 8 of them are named in the Bible, but there were more that are unnamed. Now, the issue of multiple wives in the Old Testament is very interesting. Many of the kings took multiple wives. In fact, David's son, King Solomon, took 300 wives and 700 concubines. That's a busy guy, right? So he learned that from his dad, from King David, at least 8. Well, the Bible presents monogamy as God's plan. One man and one woman for life. That's God's plan from Genesis throughout the Bible. But this period of time, we see all these wives, kings especially. Most scholars think it was a kind of an allowance in that time and culture to protect women, and women had no way to protect themselves. A lot of men died in wars. Women lived longer than men, so that a man would take more than one wife to protect them, provide shelter and so forth for them. But it still was problematic, and it wasn't the way God designed it. David's first wife was one of Saul's daughters. Her name was Michal. This is interesting, Saul's price for David to take his daughter in marriage was 100, listen to this carefully, 100 Philistine foreskins. Okay, you get 100 Philistine foreskins, I'll give you my wife in marriage. He was hoping that David would go out and try to do that and he'd get killed in the process. I mean, who's going to let the Philistines aren't going to just lay down and take that, right? They're going to fight back. But to Saul's surprise, David, he got the bride price together. I wonder, what size bag would those fit into? Is that like a little sack? Or is that doesn't tell us exactly how he got it, but he got 100 Philistine foreskins, he gets married. But Michal and David seem to have had a rocky relationship. Saul used Michal on multiple occasions to try to get back at David. In fact, for a while, he removed her and gave her to another man for a season. And in the end, Michal was not able to bear him any children, which is a failure of marriage in that day and time. So by the time of this story, David has many wives, but he's not happy with any of them. The danger of entitlement is that it leads a man to think he can do whatever he wants, but doing whatever he wants does not bring satisfaction, and doesn't bring it for David. And the combination of laziness plus entitlement makes David a sitting duck for what happens next. And here's where I want to spend our time. Thirdly, the power of lust. Power of lust. One of the things that made this recent election season so, just distasteful was the nearly daily revelations or stories about predatory sexual behavior on the part of either the president-elect or the husband of the Democratic candidate, one accused of boorish comments and behavior, the other an admitted sexual serial philanderer. Collectively, we'd hear all the stories, we'd sort of collectively shake our heads and wonder how otherwise smart and successful men could be so adolescent and foolish. And then we think a little more deeply, and something in us knows that we're kind of looking at ourselves in a way. Like I said, there but for the grace of God, go I. The issue, of course, is lust. Something that pretty much all of us, as men, know a little something about. One of my favorite quotes on this issue comes from a writer named Frederick Buechner. And he writes this in one of his novels. Lust is the ape that gibbers in our loins. Tame him as we will by day, he rages all the wilder in our dreams by night. Just when we think we're safe from him, he raises up his ugly head and smirks, and there's no river in the world flows cold and strong enough to strike him down. Almighty God, why dost thou deck men out with such a loathsome toy? Now, we need to distinguish between lust and desire. There's nothing wrong with desire. As men, we were created by God with desire. We are hardwired to be attracted to women. And that's not a bad thing. It's as if we have an engine inside of us, and the engine is always on. That's what I tell my sons. I have 4 sons, 26, 24, 21, 19. They have an engine. I've talked to them about their engine and my engine. Your engine's always on. But the engine needs an engineer. Someone needs to drive it. It can't be trusted on its own. See, the Bible never asks us to apologize for being men. Read the Song of Songs sometimes, one of the least read books in the entire Bible. It's right in the middle. It's one of the oldest books in the Bible. It's a celebration of the desire between a man and a woman, the God-given desire. Let me read just part of it for you to tempt you to read more of it, okay? This comes out of the Bible now. How beautiful you are, it's the man talking. How beautiful you are, and how pleasing, my love, with your delights. Your stature is like that of a palm, and your breasts are like clusters of fruit. I said, I will climb the palm tree and take hold of its fruit. Whoa, that's in the Bible. Did you know that? You don't have to apologize for being a man. You don't have to apologize for having desire. You don't have to apologize for wanting a woman. God made us that way. We don't have to fear it. But lust is a different animal altogether. See, lust is desire corrupted. See, sin is the corruption of all God made as good. You take any gift God's given and you blow it up and take it out of proportion, it'll destroy. Take, for example, fire is good. We have a fireplace in our home. But if I put those logs on my kitchen table, it'll burn my house down. Right? Ice cream is good. I like ice cream. But if I eat 3 cartons a day for 20 years, it'll kill me. It'll kill you too. That's the way this gift is for us. Desire is good, but desire corrupted is lust. Lust is the desire to possess that which is not ours for purposes that are entirely selfish. One writer said, lust is the craving for salt of a man dying of thirst. That's a good description. See, lust eventually destroys true desire. So what's happening in those 23 seconds we saw in the film is that as a man, David couldn't help but notice the woman bathing. He couldn't help it. We're visual creatures. He walks out, boom, there she is. He's going to notice that. I'm going to notice that. You're going to notice that. There's nothing wrong with noticing that. It's how we're wired up. But in that first 1 to 2 seconds, he made a decision. And you could see him make the decision in the film. The decision was, what? To keep looking for another 20 seconds, playing out an imaginary encounter in his mind. Let me ask you this. How far can your mind go in 20 seconds? I know how far mine can go. So how do we tame that beast? Let me give you just a few things to write down or think about. First, accept, respect, and own the engine. The engine I'm calling desire today. Being a man is good. It's good. Having desire as a man is good. But just as fire is good, it's also powerful and dangerous. Desire is infinitely better than lust. Desire is real. Lust is imaginary. Desire is true. Lust is a lie. Desire brings life. Lust brings death. Accept, own, and celebrate the desire, but beware of the lie. Secondly, live for the purposes God has given us. Fight the right battles. If David had been where he was supposed to be, that is, leading as kings should lead, doing what kings should do, he wouldn't have been out on that rooftop that night. He wouldn't have been bored and tired and entitled and looking for something to do. He wouldn't have been vulnerable. As men, we're called to fight for, to be vigilant for, to be engaged in some God-given responsibilities. First, our faith. We are to be growing in worship, in prayer, in the word, in service, in generosity. That's part of what TEAM is about, to help fill part of that need in our lives. But we all need more than this hour on Friday mornings. And when we're growing in our faith, we become less vulnerable to the temptations. We're called to fight for, be vigilant for, to protect our families and our wives, those of us who are married and have children. As men, and we talk about this over and over again, we are responsible for our marriages and for our children. We are responsible. God will hold us accountable for our marriages and our family. As great as David was, he abdicated that responsibility. And we can see it later. His children all had significant issues. They didn't know how to live as men because he didn't teach them. We are responsible. Fight. We are responsible for our work, to be vigilant for and fight for our work. We fight entitlement, idleness, and sloth when we fight the right battles. We are most vulnerable as men when we are disengaged from the primary responsibilities of our lives. When we are bored, alone, and angry, we're sitting ducks. David was all three: bored, alone, and angry. Thirdly, we can understand and fight against the lie of lust. During those 23 seconds when David, in the movie, we don't know how long he watched in real life, but in 23 seconds, you can hear the wrestling match in his mind, right? Lust is saying to him, you could have that. You're the king. She's in your kingdom. You can have that. That can be yours. You can hear it. And it's all a lie. The truth was, she belonged to somebody else. The truth was, if he took that, he was going to pay a price. But that's not what the lie said. The lie said, you can have that. No one will know. Your eye won't know. It's a lie. We need to understand the lie and fight the lie. Fourth, establish a covenant with our eyes. Now, what does that mean? Covenant with our eyes. In Job chapter 31, we're going to look at the story of the man Job soon, but in Job 31, Job says, I made a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully at a young woman. I think what that means is make a 1 or 2 second promise. Make a promise to yourself. When I notice, and I'm built to notice, I'm going to notice, I have a 1 or 2 second limit. I don't spend the next 20 seconds. That's what it means to make a covenant, make a promise with your eyes. And finally, 5th, confess our weaknesses and seek help. Get help. From God first in prayer. I start every morning on my knees in my office at home, 5 o'clock, 5:15, whatever time I get up, for at least a few minutes. It's not long, but on my knees in the darkness. And one of the things I always pray, always, is protect my eyes and my heart today. Keep my eyes clean today. Why do I pray that? Sometime during the day, I know, every day of my life, sometime I'm going to see an image, I'm going to see a person, and my instinct is going to be to notice and to go from 1 to 2 seconds to 20 seconds. How do I know that? Because I've done that. I pray every morning. Make a covenant with your eyes. Get God's help. So you're prepared when the 2 seconds comes. David should have turned around and walked inside. Wasn't that hard to do? He didn't do it. Get help from accountability. Find a friend, someone you can talk to and trust. You can tell them about your covenant. You can ask them how they're doing with theirs. Find accountability. And thirdly, from Focus Ministries, deeper help. For some of you, the trains run way down the track. For some of you, you're way past 20 seconds. You might be into 20 years. And you need more help than that. Our church supports a ministry called Compass. We put those brochures out every day, every Friday morning back at the table back there. It's a group for guys who are trying to reestablish integrity in this part of their lives. And it's difficult to make that step, but it's important. Don't let the fire burn your house down. If you need help, pick one of those up anonymously. Email me. I can get you in contact with the group. Or if you know someone, if you have a son who's struggling, find out the information. We can help with that. David's whole life hung in the balance for 20 seconds. And the decision he made at the end of those 20 seconds destroyed his career, his family, and his legacy. God forgave him, but there were implications and there were consequences. And here's the point. It didn't have to. And it doesn't have to burn our house down. Here's the questions I want you to deal with around the table. Just 2. And I want to normalize the conversation today. We all know what that is. We're all men here. Okay? So there's no shame. There's no judgment. Nobody's better than anybody else. Okay? Here's the questions to give you a way to talk about it. If you could sit down with either young King David, let's say right after he killed Goliath and had all this greatness in front of him, or older King David right after the Bathsheba incident, which David would you want to sit down and have a conversation with? And why? What would you want to talk about? Would you want to give him advice as the young David? Hey, bud, here's what's coming. Or would you want to learn what he learned after when he's an older King David? Just an interesting conversation. Have it around the table. Secondly, as men, we are most often tempted through our eyes. What does it mean to you to make a covenant with your eyes? And here what I want you to talk about if you get there is what are the things, the boundaries you've given yourself? What have you found that helps you? I told you something I try to do every day. What are some things that you have done to help you build boundaries, the 1-2 second boundary in your life with regard to your eyes? All right, I know everybody's gonna get up and go get coffee now. Get your coffee, get a donut, come back and have the conversation. I'll wrap you up right before 7 o'clock.